A new study out this week asked the question, are America's schools really failing as much as we're led to believe? If you pick up a newspaper, if you pick up a magazine, if you watch TV, you hear that the American education system is completely in crisis. It's broken, it's failing, the education system is not working. Is that really true? Well, according to a new study of comparing international tests and U.S. scores on international tests, the answer is no.
The reformers say that American education is failing. They say that it's obsolete. They say that we spend more and that achievement is flat. They want to persuade the public to abandon their public schools. They're laying the groundwork for privatization. They claim that our schools are in an unprecedented crisis. They say this again and again. It's a big lie. They are wrong.
So when it comes to choosing the best school for her, why do we lose that choice?
Can you pick me up? I'm scared.
There is only one valid longitudinal measure of academic achievement for America's students as a whole, and that is the Federal National Assessment of Educational Progress. NAEP. NAEP is a no-stakes test, and this is what it shows. The test scores of American students are at their highest point in history.
And so we got to do something right now.
We need to fix Adams, and we need to fix it yesterday.
Your turn. In the last 19 years, 7 out of 10 kids who leave Adams can barely read. There are people out there designing and building prisons, and those people are looking at our schools, and they're figuring out what kids are going to drop out so they know how many prison cells to build. And you know what I want to say to those prison folk? I want to say, hands off my kid.
Hands off our kids!
Hands off our kids! Hands off our kids! Hands off our kids!
Invite your local civic and business leaders to visit your classrooms and to join you in stopping the Walmartization of public education.
This union issue, especially when it comes to the schools and the teachers, is starting to bleed across party lines. It used to be a Republican thing saying these, not the teachers, but the teachers' unions are doing more harm than good when it comes to educating our children.
And that's because the machine isn't designed to produce better schools. It's designed to produce more money for unions and more donations for politicians.
Yet another myth is that the problem is obstruction from the teachers' unions. In fact, the highest performing countries like Japan and Finland have the strongest teachers' unions, and the OECD recommends working with rather than demonizing unions.
Why are America's public schools failing? Why, after more than a quarter century of perpetual reform, has the nation been unable to bring real change to public education? Well, a complete answer, of course, would be very complicated. But at the heart of it lies the power of the teachers' unions, the National Education Association, the American Federation of Teachers, and their state and local affiliates.
So why should the unions be turned into villains and into scapegoats, as they have been in the media?
Well, a complete answer, of course, would be very complicated.
It's to silence you, to say that you have a self-interest. Of course, all those people who are out to make money on the schools and turn charters into for-profit and have online schools making millions, they don't have a self-interest. Only you have a self-interest.
Well, a complete answer, of course, would be very complicated.
There's no evidence that unions get in the way of high academic performance. The highest performing states in the United States are Massachusetts, Connecticut, and New Jersey, all states with strong teachers' unions. The lowest performing states on the National Assessment of Educational Progress are the southern states where the unions are weakest. Poverty is the root cause of low academic performance, although reformers say it's just an excuse.
Well, a complete answer, of course, would be very complicated.
Education is first, last, and always a business. If it's run like a business, it can be done profitably.
Charters are basically public schools that are taxpayer-funded but privately run. And now, the first ones emerged 25 years ago as places to experiment with new educational approaches, and since then they've exploded. There are now over 6,700 charter schools educating almost 3 million students.
You want to start a school with me?
What?
Because I'm sick of this. I can't take this anymore, and somebody told me that if you find a teacher and you stick with it long enough, you can turn a school around.
In 42 states and DC, we're doing them. So instead, we're going to look at how they operate in practice. One group found, on average, charters had a slight edge over traditional public schools in reading and did about the same in math, but acknowledged charter quality is uneven across the states and across schools. And that is putting it mildly, because around the country, there have been charter schools so flawed, they don't make it through the school year.
This charter school suddenly closed its doors in the middle of the day.
An Orange County charter school suddenly closed its doors without notice.
The local charter school is suddenly and unexpectedly closing its doors.
Education is first, last, and always a business. If it's run like a business, it can be done profitably.
This isn't a restaurant that you just open up, you serve your food, people don't like it, you close it, and you move on. This is education. This is students are getting left in the middle of the year without a school to go to. So I just think that there needs to be some filter as to who's opening up these charter schools.
Exactly. The problem with letting the free market decide when it comes to kids is that kids change faster than the market. And by the time it's obvious a school is failing, futures may have been ruined.
The school's mission for these students is to go to college, right?
Yes. To go to college, to excel in college, and to graduate from college.
And how many people from last year are in college right now?
So 93% of our first graduating class is currently enrolled in college.
Which was last year?
93%. Yeah. Yeah.
And this year, you're trying to make it 100%.
Yes, absolutely.
Right.
Kipp Academy has been named the highest performing middle school in the entire Bronx. Congratulations, Kipsters.
Stanford University's Center for Research on Education Outcomes conducted the most comprehensive study on charter schools to date. What some of the most prominent charter schools have learned to create is the illusion of student improvement. As the number of students in red at KipStar go down, the proficiency rates in blue go up. When looking only at the blue line for proficiency, it would appear that KipStar has led its students to make dramatic improvements. However, if you look closely at the red enrollment line, you can see that the school lost over 20 students between 5th and 8th grade.
The thing that's so, to me, crazy about this is that if you were to look at the research on, let's say, the 10 top performing nations in the world, none of them have a free market. All of them have great public school systems, so that wherever you live, whatever your zip code, there's a good public school. They don't have charters and they don't have vouchers. So she's pushing an ideology that has already been proven not to work. And the best evidence of this is to look at Michigan itself, where the charters are lower performing than the public schools. And Detroit, which is overrun with charters and for-profit charters, the results there are abysmal.
If it's run like a business, it can be done profitably.
Well, the explosion of testing can be traced back to the 90s, when you probably remember stories like these about the state of public education.
When 40 nations recently took the International Math and Science Test, American students scored near the bottom.
It's important to make sure that students are learning what they need to learn across the course of the school year, and that teachers are being held accountable.
And if confirmed, will you insist upon that equal accountability in any K-12 school or educational program that receives federal funding, whether public charter, or private?
I support accountability.
Equal accountability for all schools that receive federal funding.
I support accountability.
Okay, is that a yes or a no?
I support accountability.
Do you not want to answer my question?
I support accountability.
Okay, let me ask you this. I think all schools that receive taxpayer funding should be equally accountable. Do you agree with me or not?
Well, they don't. They're not today.
But I think they should. Do you agree with me or not?
Well, no, because...
You don't agree with me.
Everything we do in this room is personal. How we talk to each other, how we work together, and how we've prepared for these tests.
I support accountability.
The intentions here were good, because we do have underperforming schools, and there are major economic and racial disparities in the quality of education children receive. And anything that can help us narrow those gaps is obviously a good thing. The problem has been the implementation. For instance, many states now tie teacher pay to performance using one particular approach.
It's called value-added analysis, rating teachers based on student test scores. For instance, if a student who ranked in the 60th percentile test higher at the end of the year, the teacher gets a better rating. If the student falls, the teacher's rating falls.
Think they're as nervous as we are?
I'm not nervous.
Fantastic.
Thanks.
It's just what people want.
You have to ask yourself, if standardised tests are bad for teachers and bad for kids, who exactly are they good for? Well, it turns out they're operated by companies like all these. And let's just focus on the largest one, Pearson. As of 2012, they had nearly 40% of the testing market, almost triple their nearest competitor.
The way of the world is a standardized testing world. You want to get into a grad school, you're going to take a test.
It's just what people want.
Pearson have a shocking amount of influence over America's schools. So much so that at this point, a hypothetical girl could take Pearson tests from kindergarten through at least 8th grade, tests, by the way, that she studied for using Pearson curriculum and textbooks taught to her by teachers who were certified by their own Pearson test. If at some point she was tested for a learning disability like ADHD, that's also a Pearson test. And if she eventually got sick of Pearson and dropped out, well, she'd have to take the GED, which is now, guess what, also a Pearson test.
It's just what people want.
But if you don't test, how do you measure progress, and how do you assess the teachers and the staff of schools?
First of all, you need testing for information, but we're using testing now as punishments. So, yeah, we should use tests diagnostically. We should use them to help children. We should use them to help teachers improve their instruction. But there is just a huge body of research that says that when you tie incentives to test scores, the tests themselves become invalid. Because you then start teaching kids how to take the test. And then they learn test-taking skills, and when they get into a community college, they don't even know how to read, write, or do mathematics. All they know how to do is take tests. All they know how to do is take tests. All they know how to do is take tests.
And that's because the machine isn't designed to produce better schools.
Education is first, last, and always a business.
It's the big lie. They are wrong. They don't have a self-interest. Only you have a self-interest.
Well, a complete answer, of course, would be very complicated.
I support accountability.
It's just what people want.
Futures may have been ruined.